All right, the Milwaukee Bucks offseason article is up on ESPN.com. Milwaukee has been eliminated from the playoffs in 7 games by the Boston Celtics in a non-competitive second half. And listen, from a talent standpoint, Boston is the better team here. When you remove Chris Middleton from this Milwaukee lineup, you're basically, it's Giannis on an island, and hopefully you can get 25 points out of Drew Holiday. Because your supporting cast is not good enough to get to a conference finals without Chris Middleton. So give Boston credit for taking advantage of the opportunity. As great of the brilliance of Giannis, and I write this in the article, it's too much as far as to overcome as far as what Milwaukee lacked and what the Boston Celtics had when you look at Brown, Tatum, Smart, Grant Williams, Al Horford. I mean, the list goes on and on. I'm stunned this even got to 7 games, guys. I think this should have probably ended in maybe 5. I think when you look at Boston losing that game 3, Boston losing that game 5 at home, this should have been a shorter series, and give Milwaukee credit for stringing it to 7 games. And at the end of the day, you did not have enough talent to compete with the Celtics. So give the Celtics credit. On to the conference finals. We'll talk about them in another day, another time when they either lose to the Heat or they get to the finals and they even win it all. But I think for Milwaukee, in the offseason articles up, there's a couple focuses here. The one is certainly Middleton, as far as what do you do with Chris Middleton? Out for the playoffs after game 2, I believe, in that Chicago series. He's got 2 years left, $37 and $40 million. The second year is a player option. He is extension eligible. He can either eliminate that option and you can extend him for another 4 years. But here's the thing. The first year of the extension has to start at least $40 million, or he can opt into that number and then extend. You can extend them for 2 years, $50 million. You can extend them for 3 years, $60 million. There's no restriction as far as how much you can, in that year, if that player option is picked up, and you can decrease it as, you can go all the way down to the minimum. Chris Middleton's not getting the Middleton. But here's my question. There's a little bit of a regression that we're starting to see with Chris Middleton. Certainly 3 years in a row, averaging 20 points a game. Shot 39% on shots off the dribble this year. That was down from 45.9 in the last 2 years. That was 4th among players. So there's a little bit of a drop. 44% from the field, lowest since 13-14. 37.3 from 3, lowest since 17-18. Ranks 7th in games played and 5th in minutes among all active players. Turns 33 in the first year of the extension. So be careful as far as what number you're thinking about as far as extending Chris Middleton, because there's going to be a lot more mileage on those legs and that body in the next 2 years. So that's one focus as far as with Milwaukee and Chris Middleton here. The other focus is going to be as far as 2 players that have player options, Bobby Portis and Pat Connaughton. So Portis is going to opt out of his contract. There's no way he's coming back on that deal. He's got the early bird exception, meaning that the most that Milwaukee can sign him for is $10.9 million. But here's the thing. Unlike this current contract, he cannot have a player option in an early bird contract. So similar to what Reggie Jackson did with the Clippers, it's got to be at least 2 years. So when you look at Portis, would he come back at 2 years, $22.6 million, put him in free agency again in 2024 when he would be 29 years old? Is there one of these cap space teams? I don't know if he's a cap space free agent, but is there a cap space team out there? Maybe a San Antonio, maybe an Indiana, maybe Orlando, Portland. Let's see if they create room. Detroit potentially. That would give him more than that 10-9 number. So that's the one thing as far as Portis. He's your priority this offseason as far as retaining him. Pat Connaughton, $5.7 million player option. We'll see. Has not been good in the playoffs. Certainly had a career year during the During the regular season, he's got bird rights, meaning that if he opts out, you can sign him up until 30% of the salary cap. He's not getting that. But he can opt out. You can sign him for 2 years, let's say $18 million, similar to what Grayson Allen did. You lose him. He opts out and goes signs with another team. You're stuck with the veteran minimum exception and a $6.4 million tax mid-level exception. So that's kind of your resources as far as when you're looking at your bench. You've got the veteran minimum exception. You've got the tax mid-level exception. You've got your draft pick, which is the 24th pick in the draft here. You are a luxury tax team. So you are going to have to find reinforcements. And I think the second round proved you need help on your bench. You basically only had Portis, half of Pat Connaughton, and a quarter of George Hill as far as what was available here. And the rest of the roster here was basically Serge Ibaka wasn't playable. It certainly was sick. We know that. That trade turned out to be a disaster when you look at Ibaka that you acquired for Dante DiVincenzo. And I know there's concerns about where he was health-wise going into restricted free agency. We didn't know about the health of Brook Lopez to give them another insurance policy, but I don't think DiVincenzo would have moved the needle in this series with Middleton out. I mean, a healthy Middleton, and we're probably talking about Milwaukee getting to the conference finals right now, but you look at, Thanasis, Rajon Tucker, Luka Vildoza, Jordan Nwora, Wesley Matthews, Javon Carter. Matthews gave you some minutes, but that is not an NBA level bench at all, and that is going to be the focus here. You've got a handful of roster spot. You got the veteran minimum exception. You got the tax mid level. You got your draft pick, but you need to build your bench up. So when the next time there's an injury, maybe to Middleton or Holiday, you've got the reinforcements, and Giannis is not basically kind of an island on himself. The window for this team to win a championship is still open. The window for this team will always stay open as long as Giannis is on this roster. That's how great of a player he is. But now it's up to the front office. It's similar to what happened with Miami when they lost to Milwaukee last year in the first round after going to the finals in the bubble. You got to take a step back and say, what do we need to address? What do we need to get better at here? Brook Lopez, last year of his contract, what value does he have? Do you look to maybe extend off him? But there's a lot of work to do. And I know intact, this is a championship roster, but you got to build out the bench. That is a priority for Milwaukee this offseason.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.